The rain hammered the floor-to-ceiling windows of Callum Harlan's penthouse like it had a grudge, each drop a reminder that Seattle never let you forget your sins. Callum stood in the doorway of the nursery, arms crossed over his chest, watching as the latest nanny, a wide-eyed college kid named Sarah, fumbled with Finn's bedtime story, her voice cracking on the dragon's roar. His son, all of 5 years old with Callum's hazel eyes and a mop of unruly curls, stared up at her with that piercing gaze that cut through bullshit like a knife. "You're not mommy," Finn said flatly, and the room went still as a grave. Callum's jaw tightened. He'd heard it before, 100 times from 10 different women in 2 godforsaken months, but tonight it landed like a punch to the gut. Sarah's cheeks flushed crimson. She set the book down with trembling hands and stood, mumbling apologies that dissolved into the storm outside. "Mr. Harlan, I'll just go." He nodded once, sharp as a blade, and she was gone before the echo of the elevator ding faded. 10 nannies, 10 failures, each one too soft, too scripted, too damn eager to play house in a home that had been shattered 2 years ago when his wife, Lena, drove off that slick mountain road and left him with a ghost of a boy and a fortune that bought everything except peace. He sank onto the edge of Finn's bed, the mattress dipping under his weight, and pulled his son into a hug that smelled of crayons and rain-soaked earth from the rooftop garden. "Hey, buddy, dragons aren't real anyway." Finn burrowed closer, small fists clutching Callum's shirt, but Callum felt the tremor in those tiny shoulders. The one that said trust was a luxury they couldn't afford anymore. Callum Harlan, the king of Harlan Tech, the man who'd coded his way from a cramped garage in Bellevue to a billion-dollar empire revolutionizing AI for sustainable energy, couldn't even keep a stranger around to tuck his kid in at night. What kind of father did that make him? Downstairs in the marble-floored kitchen, Callum poured himself a scotch, neat, because anything else felt like surrender, and scrolled through the nanny agency's desperate emails. Highly recommended candidates attached. He snorted, the burn of the liquor chasing away the chill. That's when his assistant's message pinged. "Last resort for tomorrow's interview. Barrett Thorne, 28, from Maine. References impeccable. Specializes in trauma-informed care. Warned him about you." Callum's finger hovered over delete, but something, maybe the rain, maybe the ache in his chest, made him click open the file. Barrett Thorne, tousled blonde hair in the photo, a crooked smile that didn't quite reach sea-green eyes, built like he spent summers hauling lobster traps rather than chasing spreadsheets. Not the usual polished type. Callum drained his glass. Fine. One more shot in the dark. The next morning, the city woke under a slate-gray sky, the Space Needle piercing the clouds like a forgotten promise. Callum's office in the Harlan Tech Tower overlooked Elliott Bay, all glass and steel efficiency. But today he cleared his schedule for the interview in the penthouse conference room, a sterile space with views of fairies slicing through the sound. Finn was at preschool, dropped off with a kiss and a backpack full of lies about how Daddy's day would be super fun. Lies were easier than truths these days. Barrett Thorne arrived 10 minutes early, shaking rain from his wool coat like a dog fresh from the surf. He was taller than the photo suggested, lean and wiry, with freckles dusting his nose and shoulders that spoke of open skies, not boardrooms. Maine, Callum remembered lobster rolls and lighthouses, worlds away from this concrete jungle. Barrett extended a hand, grip firm but not aggressive, calluses rough against Callum's palm. "Mr. Harlan, thanks for seeing me. I know your schedule's tighter than a nor'easter." Callum grunted, gesturing to the leather armchair across from his desk. No small talk, he hated it. "Let's cut the weather report. Why should I hire you when the last 9 couldn't handle a 5-year-old with nightmares?" Barrett didn't flinch. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, those green eyes steady as tide pools. "Because I've been that kid. Lost my folks young, car wreck up in Bar Harbor. Bounced around foster homes till I aged out. I get the rage, the walls. Finn doesn't need a nanny. He needs someone who won't bolt when the storm hits." Callum's pulse kicked up, unbidden. There it was, the raw edge, no polish. He flipped through the resume. Degree in child psychology from UMaine, stints at shelters in Portland, a glowing letter from a family in Austin where he'd turned chaos into calm. But something nagged, a whisper in the back of his mind. Barrett's gaze lingered a beat too long on Callum's wedding band, still worn like a shackle 2 years after Lena's funeral. "You're not married," Callum said, not a question. Barrett's mouth quirked. Nope. Single as they come. Focuses me on the job. They talked logistics, hours, salary, the no BS clause about interfering with Callum's work. Barrett promised structure without rigidity. Bedtime rituals with star charts. Finn loved space. Park runs in Discovery Park to burn off energy. And no screens after 7, unless it's a Harlan Tech demo. Callum almost cracked a smile at that. By the end, he was signing the contract without a second thought. The pen scratching like fate sealing a deal. 2 weeks trial. Don't fuck it up. Barrett started that afternoon, shedding his coat to reveal a faded flannel shirt rolled to the elbows, forearms corded with muscle from God knows what back east. Finn eyed him warily from the playroom rug, Legos scattered like landmines. Who's this? The boy demanded, chin jutting. Callum hovered in the doorway, ready to intervene. Barrett crouched to Finn's level, not invading space, just offering a palm. Name's Eli. Used to build forts in the woods that could withstand a blizzard. Think you and me could whip one up here? Finn's eyes narrowed, then flickered with curiosity, the first spark Callum had seen in weeks. By dinner, they were knee-deep in couch cushions and blankets, Barrett narrating a tale of pirate spaceships battling asteroid krakens, his voice rolling like waves on Acadia shores. Callum watched from the kitchen island, chopping carrots for a stir-fry he rarely cooked, a strange warmth uncoiling in his chest. It wasn't gratitude, not yet. More like recognition. This man moved through their fractured world like he belonged, piecing it back without fanfare. That night, as rain lashed the windows again, Callum found Barrett in the nursery, rocking Finn after a nightmare. The boy clutched a stuffed rocket, whimpers fading into soft breaths. Barrett's hand stroked slow circles on Finn's back, murmuring, "You're safe, little captain. Stars don't fall. They just wait for you to catch up." Callum leaned against the jamb, shadows playing across Barrett's profile, high cheekbones softened by lamplight, lips parted in quiet song, an old sea shanty Callum half remembered from college road trips. Their eyes met over Finn's head, and for a heartbeat, the air thickened, charged like the storm outside. Barrett didn't look away, and Callum felt exposed, raw, as if those green eyes saw straight through to the man he'd buried under grief and code. He cleared his throat, breaking the spell. "Coffee?" came out gruffer than intended. Barrett nodded, easing Finn into bed with a gentleness that twisted something deep in Callum's gut. In the kitchen, steam curled from mugs like secrets. "He's a tough nut," Barrett said, sipping black brew. "But kids like him? They bloom when you give 'em roots." Callum stared into his cup, the liquid dark as his doubts. "Roots? Yeah. Mine got yanked out." The words slipped free, unplanned, and Barrett tilted his head, listening without pity. "Tell me about her." "Lena." Callum hadn't spoken her name aloud in months. But there, under the recessed lights, with the city humming below, he did, halting at first, then in a rush. The way she'd laughed at his terrible puns during late-night coding sessions, how she'd pushed him to sell the startup, the skid marks on that rainy highway that ended it all. Barrett absorbed it, nodding at the right pauses, his presence an anchor in the flood. "Sounds like she was your North Star," he said finally. "Finn's got that in him too. And you." Callum met his gaze, the compliment landing soft but sure, stirring embers he'd long thought cold. For the first time in years, the penthouse didn't feel so empty. Days blurred into a rhythm Callum hadn't known he craved. Barrett arrived at 7 sharp, backpack slung with books on constellations and sketchpads for Finn's invention journals. Mornings were chaos, Callum gulping coffee while Barrett wrangled Finn into rain boots for puddle jumping in the courtyard. "Boots on, Harlan Jr., or the slugs'll getcha." Barrett would tease, his main accent thickening with laughter. Finn giggled, a sound like sunlight cracking clouds, and Callum paused in the foyer, briefcase in hand, struck by how Barrett fit. Sleeves rolled, hair damp, turning routine into ritual. Afternoons brought park expeditions to Gas Works Park, where rusted industrial relics loomed like ancient guardians. Barrett chased Finn across Kite Hill, both of them whooping as wind tugged at their jackets, while Callum sat on a weathered bench, laptop open but untouched. He'd watch Barrett hoist Finn onto his shoulders, pointing out bald eagles wheeling over the bay, spinning yarns about shipwrecks and buried treasure. "See that factory ruin? Used to make gas for the whole city. Now it's our kingdom." Finn's trust flowered, Bedtime stories evolved from solo readings to collaborative epics, Barrett letting the boy dictate plot twists while Callum lingered in the shadows, eavesdropping like a thief stealing moments of normalcy. Evenings were quieter, the three of them orbiting the kitchen island. Barrett cooked, nothing fancy, just clam chowder from a family recipe that filled the air with brine and thyme, or grilled salmon with lemon from the rooftop herbs. Main roots, he'd say with a wink, plating it family style. Callum, who lived on takeout and tension, found himself lingering, forks scraping ceramic as conversations veered from Finn's latest Lego spaceship to Callum's latest boardroom battle. These investors, Callum grumbled one night over apple pie, they want me to pivot to military contracts, drones, surveillance, like I built this for war machines. Barrett's fork paused. You built it for the planet, right? Clean energy, no more blackouts in the Rust Belt. Stick to that. Finn's watching how you fight. The words hit like a current, pulling Callum under. No one, not his board, not his therapist, had framed it that way. He glanced at Finn, conked out on the couch with a thumb in his mouth, and felt a surge of protectiveness laced with something sharper, more personal. Barrett caught it, his green eyes holding Callum's across the table, the room humming with unspoken voltage. You're doing good, Callum. Really. Simple, steady. Callum's throat tightened. He wanted to say thanks or more, about the loneliness that gnawed like rust on his empire, but instead, he stood abruptly. Early meeting. Night, Eli. In bed later, sheets cool against his skin, Callum replayed the moment. Barrett's voice low and sure, the way his fingers brushed Callum's when passing the salt. It stirred memories he'd locked away. College flings in dimly lit dorms. A summer in Portland with a barista named Jude whose touch lingered like smoke. But Lena had been his anchor, his choice, and after her, Callum had armored up, convinced love was a risk he couldn't take again. Not with Finn's heart on the line. Still, as rain pattered the skylight, Callum's hand drifted low, pulse quickening at the thought of Barrett's laugh, his easy grace. Guilt twisted in, sharp as a hook, but so did desire, fierce, unbidden, cracking the ice around his soul. The trial week stretched into 2, boundaries blurring like fog over the sound. Barrett's presence wove into the penthouse seams. His boots by the door, a dog-eared copy of The Little Prince on the coffee table, the faint scent of pine soap trailing him like a memory. Finn thrived. Nightmares dwindled to whispers, his drawings shifting from jagged black scribbles to vibrant rocket launches amid starry fields. Eli says I'm an astronaut, he'd declare at preschool pickup, tugging Callum's hand with newfound bounce. Callum noticed the changes in himself too, subtler. Fewer scotches after dark, more texts to Barrett about Finn's quirks. He hates carrots unless you call M rocket fuel. And replies that came quick, laced with dry wit. Tell him they're warp drives. Side of mustard for thrust. Felt light, dangerous. One Saturday, with a rare day off, they ventured to Pike Place Market, the three of them dodging tourists under a rare blue sky. Barrett haggled for fresh halibut with a fishmonger, his grin infectious as he tossed a flying salmon to Finn, who caught it with a shriek of delight. Callum laughed, real, belly deep, watching them, the market's bustle fading to a hum. Later, at a waterfront cafe, steam rising from chowder bowls, Finn napped against Barrett's side, exhausted from tossing coins in the harbor. Callum's gaze snagged on the curve of Barrett's neck, exposed where his collar gaped, a freckle like a secret invitation. You ever think about staying in one place? Callum asked, voice low. Barrett stirred his spoon, eyes on the ferries. Used to run from foster to foster, then jobs that paid but didn't fill. Landed here chasing a hunch. Seattle's got that pull, like home but bigger. He looked up, direct. What about you? Built all this tower tech legacy. Ever feel like you're still searching? Callum's chest constricted. Truth clawed up. Every day since Lena. Especially now, with you here. But he swallowed it, opting for half measures. Finn's my compass. Everything else is noise. Barrett nodded, but his fingers brushed Callum's on the table. Accidental, electric. Neither pulled away. The touch lingered, a promise or a precipice, until Finn stirred, breaking the spell with demands for ice cream. That night, after Finn's lights out, Callum found Barrett on the balcony, nursing a beer and staring at the city lights. Rain had held off, stars pricking the velvet sky. Couldn't sleep? Callum asked, joining him with 2 bottles from the fridge. Barrett accepted one, clinking necks. Old habit. Back in Maine, nights were for thinking too much. They leaned on the railing, shoulders inches apart, the bay's salt air mingling with their breaths. Talk turned personal, Barrett's voice dropping as he shared fragments. A foster brother who'd been more than that. A kiss stolen under Christmas lights that ended in rejection. The quiet resolve to never hide again. I'm gay, Callum. Full stop. Doesn't define me, but it's mine. The words hung, not a bomb but a bridge. Callum's heart hammered, pieces slotting into place. The lingering looks, the ease that felt like home. I figured as much. A lie he'd suspected, hoped, feared. Barrett turned, face open in the half-light. And you? Ever? Callum exhaled, the dam cracking. Once. College. Scared me. Fitting into boxes, Lena waiting. Buried it deep. Barrett's hand found his arm, warm through the sleeve. Doesn't have to stay buried. Their eyes locked, the world narrowing to that touch, that question. Callum leaned in, slow as confession, lips brushing Barrett's in a kiss that tasted of salt and possibility. Tentative, then deepening as hands found waists, pulling close against the railing. It was fire after frost, Barrett's mouth sure and yielding, Callum's fingers tangling in blonde strands. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, the city sprawling indifferent below. This, us, Callum murmured, fear threading his voice. Barrett smiled, thumb tracing Callum's jaw. One step, Harlan, like teaching Finn to ride a bike. We wobble, but we go. But dawn brought shadows. Monday morning, Callum's world intruded. A board meeting devolved into shouts over the military pivot, investors circling like sharks. He stormed home early, slamming the door to find Barrett and Finn in the kitchen, faces painted with flour from volcano cookies. Laughter died as Callum paced, venting fury. They want to weaponize my code, turn green tech into death machines. For what? Stock bumps. Barrett wiped his hands, stepping close while Finn watched wide-eyed. Then fight it. You're Callum Harlan. Build something better. The advice rankled, too simple. Easy for you to say. You don't have empires crumbling. Barrett's eyes flashed, hurt, then steel. No, but I've had my world crumble. And I didn't rebuild by lashing out at the one person holding it together. Finn tugged Barrett's pant leg. Don't fight. Daddy's good. The words pierced Callum. He deflated, pulling Finn into a hug, but the rift lingered. That night, Barrett knocked softly on Callum's study door. We okay? Callum looked up from his laptop, exhaustion carving lines deeper. Yeah, just scared of losing control. Barrett crossed the room, perching on the desk's edge. Control's an illusion. Love's the real risk. Their kiss reignited, hungrier, hands mapping uncharted skin. Callum's shirt unbuttoned, Barrett's back against oak as breaths mingled. It escalated, urgent, clothes shedding like old skins, until they tumbled to the leather couch, bodies aligning in a rhythm of rediscovery. Barrett moved with a grace born of knowing himself, drawing gasps from Callum that echoed his name like prayer. Release came shattering, leaving them tangled, sweat-slick and spent, Barrett's head on Callum's chest. Stay, Callum whispered, fingers in damp hair. Not just for Finn. For this. Barrett lifted his head, eyes soft. I'm not going anywhere. But as they dressed in the lamplight, Callum's phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer. Investor leak. Rumors of instability. Board pushing vote tomorrow. The high crashed. Barrett saw the shift. Handle it. We've got time. Callum nodded, but doubt seeded. Could he balance this fragile new love with the storm brewing? Weeks deepened their bond. Intimacy weaving through days like thread in tapestry. Mornings blurred into shared showers, steam fogging mirrors as Barrett's hands soaped Callum's back. Lips grazing shoulders with murmured good mornings. Finn sensed the shift, his drawings now featuring 3 stick figures under a rainbow rocket. Labeled Daddy, Eli, me. We're a team, he'd say, and Callum's heart swelled, the penthouse alive with clatter and song. Yet cracks spiderwebbed. Callum's boardroom wars escalated. The military contract loomed, promising billions but soul-deep compromise. Late nights bled into dawn. Callum hunched over code, Barrett waiting with coffee and quiet concern. You're killing yourself, he'd say, massaging tense shoulders. Callum waved it off. Empire demands it. One evening, after a brutal call where an old mentor, Lena's father, Harlanteka's silent partner, accused him of squandering her legacy, Callum snapped. Barrett had planned a surprise. Tickets to the symphony, a night out sans Finn, babysitter secured. But Callum arrived home hollow-eyed, collapsing into an armchair. Cancel it. Can't. Barrett's face fell, but he knelt, hands on Callum's knees. Talk to me. The dam broke. Callum confessed the pressure, the fear of failing Finn like he'd failed Lena, the buried guilt over wanting Barrett when her ghost still whispered, "What if this us is just distraction? What if I drag you down?" Barrett cupped his face, fierce. "You're not a distraction. You're a revelation. But you gotta let me in, not just at night." The argument simmered, unresolved. They went anyway. Symphony Hall a cocoon of velvet and strings, but tension hummed. Midway through Mahler, Callum's hand found Barrett's in the dim, squeezing apology. Back home, passion purged the poison. Slow, reverent lovemaking in the master bed, Barrett atop, eyes locked as he moved, whispering, "I see you, Callum. All of you." Dawn found them entwined, but the seed of doubt sprouted. It erupted midweek. Callum's assistant uncovered dirt on a rival firm sabotaging the board vote. Hacked emails, planted leaks. Paranoia gripped him. He grilled staff, even eyeing Barrett's phone when it buzzed during dinner. "Who's that?" Callum demanded, voice edged. Barrett glanced up, fork paused. "Old friend from Maine." Nothing. But Callum's mind raced. Jealousy, insecurity, the old armor slamming down. "Show me." Barrett's jaw set. "No. Trust isn't a transaction, Callum." The fight spilled into the living room. Finn asleep upstairs. "You've been here 2 months. How do I know you're not playing us?" Callum hurled, grief twisting to accusation. Barrett recoiled as if slapped. "Playing? I've poured my soul into this, for Finn, for you. Opened up about things I swore I'd bury. And you think?" His voice cracked, green eyes storming. "Fine. If I'm such a risk, I'm out." He grabbed his coat, storming to the door. Callum lunged, grabbing his arm. "Eli, wait." But Barrett wrenched free, hurt raw. "You built walls before I even knocked. Figure out if you want love or just the ghost of it." The door clicked shut, echo like a gunshot. Callum sank to the floor, head in hands, the penthouse vast and empty once more. Finn's cry pierced the silence, nightmare. Again. Callum climbed the stairs alone, rocking his son with promises he couldn't keep, Barrett's absence a void that echoed his deepest fear. He'd fired the one man who saw him whole. Days dragged like anchors. Barrett's absence carved hollows. Meals silent. Finn's questions daggers to Callum's gut. He threw himself into work, code a numb refuge. But the board vote loomed, fractures widening. Lena's father called, voice ice. Pull the military deal or lose control. For her memory. Callum stared at the photo on his desk. Him, Lena, newborn Finn. Guilt churning. That night, alone on the balcony, rain sheeting down, he dialed Barrett. Voicemail. "I was wrong. Scared. Come back. Please." No reply. Desperation built. Callum drove to the cheap motel Barrett had mentioned once, off Aurora Avenue, neon flickering in the downpour. He pounded the door, soaked to bone. Barrett opened, hair tousled, eyes wary. "Callum, go home." But Callum stepped in, words tumbling. The sabotage plot, the board's ultimatum, how empty everything felt without him. "You're not a risk. You're my risk worth taking. I love you, Eli." Buried it once. Won't again. Barrett searched his face, then pulled him close, kiss salt-stung and fierce. "Idiot. I never left in my heart." They made love on the narrow bed, urgent and forgiving, bodies mending what words couldn't. Morning brought clarity. Barrett moving back, not as nanny, but partner, equals in the chaos. But the climax crested at the board meeting. Callum, bolstered by Barrett's quiet hand in his that dawn, walked in unyielding. "No military pivot. We're doubling down on green. Solar grids for underserved towns. Wind tech for coastal resilience." Murmurs rose. Lena's father stood, face thunder. "This is betrayal." She believed in stability. Callum met his gaze steady. "She believed in me, in building better, not bigger." Votes split, but allies, quietly rallied by Callum's vision, tipped it. Victory hard won. Betrayal's shadow fell later. The rivals hacked trace to an inside leak. Callum's mentor, Lena's father, selling secrets for a cut. Confrontation in the tower's top floor, rain lashing glass. You used her memory against me, Callum accused, voice breaking. The old man deflated. I lost her too. Thought control would honor it. Forgiveness came ragged, Callum offering a severance, not chains. Heal your way. I'll heal mine. Home, with Barrett and Finn baking victory volcano cakes. Callum exhaled the weight. Love, he'd learned, wasn't absence of storm but dancing in it. Months later, under Seattle's fleeting sun, they stood on a Maine bluff, Barrett's childhood shore. Finn racing waves, Callum's arm around his love. Roots and wings, Barrett murmured. Callum kissed his temple. Ours. In compassion's quiet grace, they'd found freedom. To love unbound, identities woven whole. Hearts mended, not in perfection, but in the raw, redemptive act of trying.